Okay, I think we're good. For those of you on YouTube, if you see me, could you please like type in the chat or wave? I think we're good now. Sorry about that. Okay, back to high fives. We are going to have you give high fives to the 60 plus institutions that have been part of Tuesday Talks. All this means is basically you're saying, I want more information from you. Like, I am very interested in your school. I'd like to know more. And these admissions officers are going to tell you how to get to know them better. They have all these awesome talks and webinars. If you like Tuesday Talks, you will like their talks because they are the same faculty. So definitely join them if you can. And yeah, log into your portal. If you have any questions, you can always email us at contact@initialview.com. Finally, we just want to once again say thank you to all of the partner high schools. We could not be doing Tuesday Talks without you. Thank you so much for sharing the information with your classmates, counselors. Thank you for sharing with your students, and friends just sharing with each other. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize the high schools and say thank you. And so then, without further ado, we would like to start our conversation today. So I am really, really honored to have three wonderful colleagues from three wonderful institutions, and they will be sharing a lot about liberal arts colleges. And I know that over the course of many Tuesday Talks, we've kind of mentioned liberal arts here and there, but today we're really going to kind of attack it. And so these three schools are going to share a little bit, introduce themselves and their schools. They're going to talk about what liberal arts is generally, but then we're going to talk about three myths. And these have come from questions that we've seen over the course of different Tuesday Talks. And we're going to address these three myths, and then we're going to have questions for you to ask yourself to figure out, is liberal arts education, is a liberal arts college something that might be good for me? And of course, as always, Tuesday Talks, we have a little bit of homework for you. We do, again, want to get to questions. So make sure you have your questions ready to ask. All righty. Well, I'm going to go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves. So Ryan, Kat, and Sophie, thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Ricciardi. I am here from Bowdoin College. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to InitialView and everyone behind the scenes who's making this happen. We're so appreciative of that. Just wanted to talk a little bit about Bowdoin and sort of three things that are important to us. This is a picture of the center of our campus. It was taken very early in the morning, so no students are up, but I promise it's usually very busy. But you can see on your screen the sort of pieces that I think are important to our community. So the first is the common good. Bowdoin was founded in 1794, so we're one of the oldest colleges in the country, and we were endowed to serve the common good. This for us means that we think that your education means that you should go out into the world and use what you've learned at Bowdoin to leave the world better than you found it. You can do that in any industry, in any area of expertise, in anything that you want to do. There are ways to make the world better. And it means that our community is really committed to this idea of the common good, this idea that education is collaborative and meant to bring people together to do good. So that's Bowdoin and the common good. One of the pieces of the common good has really led us to think about our own impact on the world around us as an institution. And so we have been really thoughtful about our footprint on the world. And so in terms of sustainability, we are an incredibly environmentally friendly college. So we are carbon neutral. We actually achieved that goal years early. We have founded the largest bank of solar panels in the state of Maine to power all of our athletic facilities and parts of other buildings on campus. Our dining hall is net neutral, so There's no waste, anything that can't get composted. We bring leftover food to local food pantries. We bring leftover food to local farms to feed animals. But also thinking about sustainability, we have most of our college community members living on campus and eating on campus. And so part of being sustainable is this idea of building out community. Food is a really big thing at Bowdoin. You start off every year with a campus-wide lobster bake. And thinking about food as a community builder sort of goes back to the common good, but is also this way of thinking about the world around you and how you are impacting it just by the things that you do every single day. And then in the corner of your screen down at the bottom, you can see our polar bear. And so the last thing that I'll talk to you about with Bowdoin is the polar bears. So that is our mascot. We are one of maybe 1 or 2 colleges in the country, I think 1 or 2 colleges in the country with a polar bear as a mascot. Ours comes because 2 of our early alums were early Arctic explorers. They thought at the time that they were the first men to set foot on the North Pole. We say now that they were the first white men to set foot on the North Pole. But as part of that expedition, they brought back to Bowdoin a polar bear. And so since 1913, we have been the polar bears. And so yes, as a mascot, it's very ferocious. But what it really represents for us is that sort of tying together this idea of sustainability and the common good and what education means. It really means that you should use your education to push the boundaries of the world around you, to really think about what your impact is, to really change how you see the world and how others can see the world. So the polar bear for us represents the ability to take intellectual risk, to use your Bowdoin education to really bring the world together and make it bigger at the same time. So that's enough for me, a little bit about Bowdoin. I look forward to talking with you throughout the talk. And thank you so much. I will pass it on to my friend and colleague, Kat from Haverford.
Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you all today. So whatever time it is where you are, we're glad that you've chosen to spend this hour with us, and really delighted to be in the company of wonderful colleagues, both today, but also sort of throughout in terms of thinking about the faculty of Tuesday Talks. What a wonderful group. Few quick things about Haverford College, a place I love dearly, not only because it pays me to be able to hang out with these wonderful people, but also because you'll hear that all 4 of us believe in the power of a liberal arts education. And for me, I found my experience at Haverford to be deeply transformative. And here are 3 reasons why. So we believe in research, that every student should have research as a sort of culminating moment in their life as a scholar at Haverford. We also are part of a larger consortium. So not only are we able to guarantee undergraduate research to each and every one of our students, but you'll have over 5,000 classes to choose from. We're located just outside of the city of Philadelphia, which means it's quite easy to get to Haverford in the landscape of traveling across the globe. But it also means that you're able to take advantage of amazing resources at 3 other wonderful colleges and universities: Bryn Mawr College, Swarthmore College, and the University of Pennsylvania. And over 90% of our students, by the time they graduate, will take advantage of this consortium. And finally, we talk a lot about the value placed on student voice. The senior thesis, that research is sort of one component of the importance of your voice, but Haverford has one of the only and one of the entirely student-run honor codes in the United States that's both social and academic in nature. And this is not a list of rules and regulations. Instead, it's really an opportunity for our students to come together and say, what do we value in community? What is going to allow me to be the best version of myself? How am I going to create a space for other people to feel like they're able to be the best versions of themselves too? And so what this means is that you get sort of this lens of how do the decisions I make not only impact me, but the people and communities around me. And we think that sort of ethical leadership lens deeply informs the ways in which you'll shape and change and challenge all of the communities that you join and continue to be a part of after you graduate from Haverford too. So as Ryan said, just to echo, really excited to be here today and excited to pass things over to Sophie.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good evening. It's great to be with you. My name is Sophie. I represent Oberlin College, small liberal arts college in Oberlin, Ohio. Oberlin is known for having a rigorous curriculum, progressive values, and tremendous accolades in the arts because we have a conservatory of music on our campus. We tend to attract students who are particularly independent and really want to change the status quo and want to make a difference in the world around them and make a difference in the spaces they inhabit. Students are attracted to Oberlin because we have a history of firsts as an institution and really leading some movements within higher education. We were founded in 1833, and we are the first college or university in the United States to admit women. We're the first college or university in the United States to admit students of color. So we are the first colleges, undergraduate bachelor's degree granting institutions to be co-ed and to have race exclusive admissions policies. We also admitted our first international student came to Oberlin a year after our founding. So we've been admitting international students since 1834. Today, we also continue to be a leader in higher education. We were one of the few colleges to sign the climate neutral agreement. So we agreed to being climate neutral by 2025. And we just started a $140 million project to get us to do the final part to be able to get climate neutral by 2025, which is turning all of our heating and cooling on campus to hydroelectrical. So in just 4 more years, we will be one of the campuses in the United States that's climate neutral. Academically, Oberlin is deeply rooted in the liberal arts, teaching students how to think, not what to think, a real focus on academic freedom. There's no specific class you have to take to graduate at Oberlin. Instead, you have tremendous choice, about 1,500 courses that are offered per semester, and you get to choose to take what's interesting to you. Your learning at Oberlin is really dictated by your own interests and curiosities and ideas, and not by sort of predetermined ideas of what it is that you need to know. So you learn in an environment of a lot of choice and freedom, but also, of course, support. Really emphasize experiential learning at Oberlin, or learning by doing. About 75% of students engage in academic research as part of their time at Oberlin. 75% of students have a study away experience outside of Oberlin campus, outside of the United States. And we have funding so that every student has an off-campus internship at least once during their time at Oberlin. One of the things that you may know about Oberlin, and that we certainly want you to know about Oberlin, is that OBs, or Oberlin students, we call them OBs, are really passionate and creative. And one of the ways that our students spend time is making music and engaging in arts, whether it's performing arts, visual arts, writing, etc. And a lot of that comes from the fact that we have a conservatory of music on our campus, a professional school of music. So the conservatory is open to all Oberlin students. And any Oberlin student can take a class in the conservatory, can minor in the conservatory, can take lessons in the conservatory. But what it means more than anything is that there's a lot of music at Oberlin, and we attract students that are artistic and creative and are sort of thinking outside the box. A lot of students who come to Oberlin engage in art, whether or not that's something that they're pursuing academically. And so the conservatory really brings a lot of music to campus. In fact, in the average academic year, 9-month academic calendar, we have about 500 concerts per year. Most of those are outside performers. Some of them are part of the Oberlin community. So in a 9-month academic calendar, that's about 2 or 3 concerts a day. So music is one of the parts of your life at Oberlin, as well as a lot of other things. So that's just a tidbit about Oberlin. Encourage you all to check out our virtual visit opportunities, which we have many of. And if you have the chance to visit a campus, of course, we'd love to show you around.
All right, great. Well, you've heard from 3 really fantastic liberal arts colleges today, and many more before us. And we wanted to sort of take a moment and ask you, what's one word you think of when you hear liberal arts college? Please respond in the chat, and we'll be really delighted to share some of your responses out loud. Anything that comes to mind is wonderful, and gives us a sense of sort of where you are in this process of sort of understanding this type of education. One of the other aspects of sort of, taking the time to hear from you, right, is this is really reflective of a liberal arts education. You're going to be an equal player in the classroom. Your voice really matters. And so see this as an opportunity to test out, right? Is this a type of education that I feel excited about? Do you want to be participatory? Do you want people to be responding to your ideas and your questions and your thoughts? Is that what allows you to feel like you're learning? So think about that also throughout our conversation this morning. All right, some great great ideas coming through in the chat. So
Yeah,
the
I'm loving
first
these.
is flexibility. Absolutely, right? There's flexibility in terms of academic options, but also lots of really exciting ways to engage. Educational intimacy, absolutely, right? There are small class sizes. Professors are really excited to be mentors to you throughout this process. Undergraduate education, yes, that's a really great starting place, right? We are institutions that focus on educating undergraduate students, and liberal arts colleges are either exclusively or primarily, right, focused on that undergraduate experience. What are some other things that are sticking out to you, Sophie, in the chat?
I love what just came in, community. We all definitely, the three of us here and our peer wonderful liberal arts colleges really emphasize community. We all are really residential institutions, and we do that because your life on campus extends beyond your learning, but more than anything, you're part of this living learning community. So the discussions you're having in the classroom are not bound to the classroom. Those conversations continue as you're walking to a dining hall, as you're going to an event on campus, a talk, a lecture, a concert, going to a sports game. And part of why we are the institutions we are is that we bring students from around the world who are really dedicated to our mission and want to be at our institutions. And so there's sort of a common thread amongst all of our students that they're attracted to this kind of institution, that they're really academically motivated and curious. And that creates such a strong sense of community at our schools. And your learning comes not only from what you're learning in the classroom from professors, but also from each other. And that's part of the really special experience at our schools. So I'm also seeing general education and broad majors. So we do have a lot of courses at our schools. We certainly offer courses in science fields and humanities and languages and literature and arts and performing and visual arts. And I would say that they're not necessarily so broad. I mean, our students do have the opportunity for real depth of their study. So if you are a chemistry major, if you're an art history major, if you are a creative writing major, you're going to spend a lot of time doing that and have a real expertise there. But because we are liberal arts, we do want you to have a broad understanding as well. So not only are you have a real skill set with art history and probably a specialty within that, you also have other skills as well. And so we allow the depth of understanding as well as a breadth of knowledge and ability and perspective.
Great. And so you'll see here, this is a word bubble that was put together a few years ago for other words that sort of come to mind when we think of the liberal arts experience. I think there are a few sort of common misconceptions that we'll talk about over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. But there are some colleges and universities that offer a degree in liberal arts. That's confusing. That is a broad degree, right? We don't offer a degree in liberal arts. You will have a major in biology, or you will have a major in political science, or a major in philosophy, but you will take courses outside of your major. So the depth comes from the specific classes you choose, and the breadth comes from the sort of the ways in which you've navigated having amazing course options, recognizing that every discipline influences each other. And this is a moment in sort of our collective global history. When you think about a pandemic, right? Each and every discipline is impacting our response to COVID. And I think this is a great example of why a liberal arts degree really matters. Yes, of course, you need someone who's going to be looking at vaccine creation, but you also need people in public health who are talking about the benefits of a vaccine. You need people who are able to really communicate effectively about how to get vaccines. You need people who are organizing in communities and making those vaccines accessible regardless of people's work schedule, right? And these are sort of just some of the lenses when we think about why depth of understanding, but also a broader lens, recognizing that the world is big and vast, and you have an understanding of what kinds of questions to ask and how to implement change in your communities. So this is a really sort of tangible type of educational experience that gives you, as Sophie said, yes, an amazing breadth of learning, but does not at any point sacrifice that depth. You will be an expert in your field, not at the risk of losing sort of where your field fits in to the larger world. And that's really the beauty of a liberal arts education.
So I hope what you're hearing from us is that you, the person, are at the center of everything in a liberal arts college community. Our institutions exist only because of the undergraduate experience, right? And so thinking about the person at the center of all of this, we thought we would start with a myth that comes up maybe early in the process as you're thinking about your application. And that myth is really centered around testing. So a couple of iterations of this myth. I can't get into college without having a test score, without having an SAT or an ACT score. Test optional does not really mean optional, that actually you should submit a test score because an admissions officer might think your test is really, really bad if you don't submit it, right? Or the opposite end of that, that a perfect test score means that you're guaranteed to get into college. The reality behind all of this is that you, the person, are not a test. And so your test score will not show up on campus in the fall, right? You, the human being, will show up on campus in the fall. And so as we think about your application, it's so much more than a test score. I think one of the wonders of this year, one of the silver linings of the pandemic, is that so many schools did go test optional. And what test optional means is that you have the choice to submit a test score or not. And when we say optional, we really do mean optional. I promise you that when I am reading and when my colleagues are reading thousands of applications every year, I don't have time to stop and wonder about a test score that isn't there. It's not interesting to me to sort of sit and think about you as a number, right? So to be really frank, your test score, and to be really sort of put a fine point on it, your test score is not your identity. All of the schools here practice what's called holistic admissions, holistic review. And that means that every single word on your application matters to us. And as we think about all the pieces that make you up, this slide really sort of represents that idea that we think about your academics and we think about who you are as a person, but your academics are not your test score, right? Your academics are your school, what classes you've taken, how you write, how you've overcome obstacles, that stuff that comes up in your recommendations, what grades you got on your classes, what trajectory are you on, where did you struggle and then get better, right? What do you like to study and what maybe do you not like to study? That's so much more interesting and so much more indicative of who the person is who's going to be in our classrooms, who's going to be participating in discussion, who's going to be asking challenging questions of their peers and their professors. That's an exciting part of a liberal arts college campus. Your test score doesn't tell me who you're going to be. And even more than that, it's not a good predictor of your academic success at any of our institutions, right? So in thinking about those myths, I want to be really clear that you can submit a test score, and that's absolutely fine. We will take that under consideration because you've chosen to say, my test score is part of what I want you to consider in my academic picture. You can also not submit a test score, and we still have more than enough information to make a decision about that academic piece, right? But I also want to go back to what my colleague said so artfully earlier about how these are living and learning communities, right? And so thinking about who you are as a person outside of the classroom is equally important to thinking about who you are inside the classroom. Those conversations that they referred to in the dining hall, they're so interesting and important. Learning from your peers is often more powerful than learning from a professor in a classroom, right? You're going to be joining communities that are globally representative, globally diverse. And so people are really at the heart of what we do. And so thinking about you, the person, is really important. And I want to be really clear. We absolutely understand that in different countries around the world, there are different academic systems, different ways to study, different curricula you can take. All of that is okay. It's our job to know where you are coming from, and you don't have to worry about that and say that your test score is going to make you look better, or that we need your test score to really understand your academic ability. That's absolutely not true. And just to address the last bit of that myth, that your perfect test score will guarantee your admission, it really goes back to that central idea that you as a human being are not a test score, right? I have often joked, I've never gone up to anyone and said, hi, I'm 1500. What does that mean? That's not my name. It's not who I am as a person. It also isn't going to be my entire academic picture, right? And so your perfect test score is such a wonderful achievement, and congratulations, because it's certainly something I never achieved. I can't even imagine, but it's not who you are. And so we take all the information in your application to really build out that picture of who you are, because the person at the center is the most important piece of information that we have. And the most important thing that we can do is to pay attention to you, the person. And that should give you a lot of confidence as you go into your application, that building out yourself as a human being should be the center of what you do, and not anchoring on a test score or on any other single piece of information, because there's no one piece of information that gets you into college, and there's no one piece of information that doesn't get you into college.
Great. So many of you have interest in STEM or science fields, be that data science, engineering, computer science, biochem, et cetera, et cetera. So we know a lot of you are interested in science, and that all of you, regardless of what your academic interests are, you want opportunities to really apply your learning out of the classroom via serious academic research. But given the name liberal arts and other connotations, it is a common misconception that you can't study science or STEM seriously at a liberal arts college, or that you cannot do meaningful, groundbreaking, high quality academic research at liberal arts colleges. And we're here to tell you that you are mistaken. You can absolutely do both of those things at liberal arts colleges. In fact, liberal arts colleges are an ideal place to be a STEM student, and there are extensive opportunities for academic research. So tackling the first point, liberal arts colleges are an ideal place to be a STEM student. First, liberal arts colleges are interdisciplinary in nature. I think we've been hitting on that so far, and that's the core of what Haverford, Bowdoin, Oberlin, and other liberal arts colleges are. So if you're a biochem major, you're taking a lot of biochem courses, of course, but you're also taking rhetoric courses and sociology courses, economics, art history, etc. And this is important because we strongly believe that taking courses outside of your major, such as I just mentioned, will make you a better scientist. As Kat said, every discipline affects COVID understanding and COVID response. Having a depth of knowledge and ability in your field is critical, but without being able to communicate your ideas, understand human needs, work beyond your field, connect your work to real problems, your scientific skill set cannot be most effective. So at liberal arts colleges, you get that because of our interdisciplinary nature. Our interdisciplinary nature, it makes you a better scientist. It's also great to study sciences at liberal arts colleges because we are small on purpose, and students in all disciplines, we believe, learn better in a smaller classroom. I think somebody in the chat wrote educational intimacy or something like that. And in all of our classes at our 3 schools and other institutions, you're going to find small classes. At our colleges, classes are rarely over 20 students, and that extends to the sciences. At some of the wonderful institutions in the United States that are large universities, comprehensive research institutions, it is not uncommon to find science courses, especially intro science courses, of 100 to 300 or even more students in a class. But instead, our classes are small, and they are because that gives you the opportunity to really be engaged in your learning, to really get to know the professors, for professors to really get to know you. And it's a really enriching academic environment for you to really learn. We teach STEM and take it really seriously at small liberal arts colleges. In fact, Oberlin College and Amherst College were the first colleges to offer neuroscience at undergraduate level. So in 1971, Oberlin College and Amherst College were the first colleges to offer neuroscience. And this is now a very common major at all institutions in the United States. But just using this as an example of how seriously liberal arts colleges take teaching STEM, and that we've been doing it for a long time. The second thing I want to talk about is extensive opportunities for academics for academic research at liberal arts colleges. We all highly emphasize research for our students. No matter what your major is, at all of our schools, we want you to have practical experiences in your field, and a lot of that is research. That's the opportunity for you to really apply what you're learning and do that with the mentorship or support of our esteemed faculty. In all of the science classes at our schools, labs are connected to the course. So at some schools, you'll take Chemistry 101 one semester, the next semester you might take the lab component. At our schools, they're always connected so that research is part of the courses and that you have hands-on experience as part of the courses. We are all also undergraduate institutions, so you don't have to compete for lab time with graduate students or research opportunities. At Oberlin, about 70% of students engage in academic research. At Haverford, it's 100%. At all of our schools, and Bowdoin, similar. At all of our schools, a lot of our students are engaging in academic research that's not part of a class, and there's funding to support that research from our institutions and from outside grants. We are also small and flexible institutions, so you individually can drive your research. You're not just being, and your own research agenda, you're not just being plugged into faculty research or existing research and being added onto one of those teams. That can happen, but you're also really able to drive your own research and your own research interests. And this is all, research is always mentored by professors. So this leads to great outcomes. Kat will talk about this a little bit more in the next couple of slides. But just here's a quick example of National Science Foundation grants. So all of this research at our institutions and great STEM education leads to great outcomes. Our students are always getting fellowships, going to graduate schools, leading, and then the rates of PhDs in the country, and employment in companies, organizations, and institutions. But for the previous slide, the National Science Foundation, this is just numbers from last year, and these are grants that are typically going to graduate type work, but these are all undergraduate institutions. And this is just 1 year for one grant. So this, these numbers change every year, but just to show you that at all of these wonderful small liberal arts colleges, our students are being recognized for doing really serious, intensive research, and that's being recognized on a national level. You'll also see all of our schools being leaders in Fulbright, Watson fellowships, National Institute of Health, and others. And that really recognizes the kind of academic work that our schools are doing. For the final slide of mine, liberal arts colleges really lead in the amount of students that go on to get PhDs, doctorate degrees, or the highest academic field, the highest academic degree you can get. And this is really a reflection of the kinds of students who come to liberal arts colleges, but also the educational opportunities at our schools and the ways that students are really cultivated and supported. At all of our schools, students are really digging deeply into academic work. developing their own academic thought and academic voice, asking their own questions. And that leads to great outcomes like fellowships, PhDs, and other things. So on to Kat.
Great. Thanks so much, Sophie and Ryan. And there are already questions coming in through the Q&A, which is wonderful. We love that engagement, but please, as you continue to think of your questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A, and we are excited to get to them. So Sophie did a great job of sort of outlining, right, this idea of your educational experience at our institutions is not purely transactional. Right? You don't come for 4 years and get a degree and then not think about your experience ever again. Instead, this is meant to be an education that sticks with you for your whole life. And you'll learn the importance of flexibility and growing and changing as sort of the world changes with you. And we think that our education, the liberal arts education, uniquely prepares students and then graduates to change with the world and to really be leading the change that's taking place across the globe as well. Maybe there are some parents on the call this evening or this afternoon or this morning. One of the most common questions I get from parents in the United States, but also across the globe is, can my student really get a job with a liberal arts degree? And the very easy answer to that is a yes, absolutely, right? We believe strongly in the value of our educational experience for many reasons, which have been articulated already, but also because of the strength of relationships. So you're not only going to have the opportunity to do research with a professor, but that's going to be someone who introduces you to, 5, 6, 10 of their colleagues across the globe. And that sort of relationship will stick with you for way more than 4 years. You're not just coming to our institutions to have that research experience, but to really understand how you can shape and change that specific discipline or what you're excited to explore. One of the other frameworks, though, that we talk about, right, is that your degree doesn't limit your opportunities on our campus, and your degree doesn't limit your opportunities when you graduate. So you'll see here at just for any of our institutions, business and finance, those are not majors that we offer. This is information for Haverford specifically, but it's similar across all of our institutions that, just about a fifth of our alums are in business and finance. They've created pathways to be at the top of a field with degrees that could be in astrophysics or could be in English, right? So the idea is that you major, Ryan always says, and I love this, you major in what you love and your career will follow. And we're talking about deeply impactful careers. The slide on the left shows and this is information from Bowdoin specifically, shows information. These are companies that Bowdoin alums are either CEOs or CFOs of or on the board of managers of. These are huge international companies. And so yes, while we are small schools, we have big names across the globe. And these are wonderful alumni networks that you get to join. These are people who are interested in extending the kinds of relationships that they've had access to as a result of their education, which will continue to shape and inform the experiences that you have well after you graduate. So your degree is valuable and it is not transactional. It is something that is shifting and changing and continues to allow you to not only get that first job, but to really be someone who is going to become the top of their field. Yes, that could be getting a PhD and going on in that realm, or it could be becoming a CEO without an advanced degree, right? Those are both sort of common pathways that our alums have. And so just want to sort of push back on that idea that you absolutely have to go to grad school. If you want to go to grad school, these are wonderful places for you. And the vast majority of our alums will go on to graduate school, but it is not necessary to be someone who is highly successful in any field or industry. And your liberal arts degree stands on its own, right? And the other piece of this is that you will get a job, and we have people who are working especially with international students to make sure you understand the opportunities across the United States, but also across the globe, with alumni networks that are strong, yes, in the United States, but are also deeply international. And so you'll have support on our campuses, and then these sort of networks that extend globally as well.
So we've given you some big topics, right? Starting with some application myths about outcomes, and hopefully we've dispelled any thoughts you had around what you can't do at a liberal arts, and really bolstered what you can do. But with where you are now, it's time to think small, right? And it's time to really put yourself at the center of the process and think, is a liberal arts institution going to be right for me? And so we put up some questions here that you can ask yourself as you start to sort of think about the experience that you want to have when you go to a college in the United States. So these questions are big questions followed by small questions, right? And we don't have to go over all the questions individually. You can feel free to just take a picture of this and go back to it later. But it really is about yourself. So what you want to do as you are thinking about what matters to you is to say, where do I want to be? How do I learn best? Where am I going to thrive as a person and as a scholar, right? These are examples of questions. They're not the only questions that you can ask. They're not the right questions for every single person, right? They're just general ideas to get you started, because you're in a great place now to start thinking about what matters to you. And if you go back to every single thing that we said, you, again, are at the center of this. It's your experience going to college. So what do you want to get out of it? And Sophie can sort of talk on the next slide a little bit about taking these questions and then doing something concrete with them.
Yes, so what we want you to do next, we really hope that you all after this see the real possibilities at liberal arts colleges and the ways that you could really grow at a liberal arts college. And so to see where would be good fits for you, we want you to choose 2 colleges you have heard of before and 2 colleges you haven't heard of before to learn more about them. Some of the colleges here today could be on the list, or other ones. We really want you to be thinking about, as in the previous question, the kind of learning environment where you think you'll be really successful, and look how that fits in with these colleges. You might want to choose to make a spreadsheet of pros and cons for colleges, seeing the ways that an institution, whether or not you've heard it before, really fits into your criteria of what it's looking for, what you're looking for. And we want you to do this a couple more times to see the themes that start to develop. To see what you would like and dislikes for college, and allow yourself to get away from sort of your preconceived ideas of sort of specific institutions you need to be at, and what the places are that will actually best suit what you really want in a higher education institution. So in doing that, these are some resources that we encourage you to consider. One is the website Big Futures, where you can do a college search. You can look at a whole different range of criteria of size and location and things to study. And that will help to introduce you to some institutions beyond what's already on your list or what you're already thinking about. Other great websites are the Coalition member page and Common Application. These are typical sites. These are sites, these are application sites these are application sites that you can look at the schools on those lists, the member schools, to learn about other colleges. that will be good for you. It's also great just to look at who is accepting InitialView and utilizing your high fives as a way of getting to know other schools and seeing what other schools are out there that might be a great fit.
This has been wonderful, as always. I went to liberal arts college as well, and so every time I hear about liberal arts, I'm like, yes! So, and whenever I see questions coming in, which we are going to get to, we have a few minutes to do that. I am just excited because I get to feel like I'm part of the answer as well. Real quickly, we're putting this contact page up because you should always ask questions. If you're not sure, and especially if you have specific institutional questions, we really are encouraging you to go ahead and reach out to the school. As mentioned earlier, go to your portal, give the high five. You'll get even more like real tangible links to go to. So, but if you have a very specific question, go back and watch our other Tuesday talks about upgrading your question. Don't ask questions that you can find on the website. Ask questions like that are related to you personally that you can't find anywhere else on the website. But these wonderful colleagues are going to want to answer those questions for you. So I also wanted to mention in the homework in talking about, making a spreadsheet. If you go back to the Ivy League talk or you go back to the Northern California talk, both of those colleagues shared example spreadsheets. You can find one of those examples in your InitialView portal. If you go into your portal, there's a resources tab. Definitely take that. If you're like, I don't even know how to begin to use a spreadsheet, there's an example there where you can talk, and I think John from Yale referred to it as preferences and non-negotiables. That's a good way to kind of think about your likes and dislikes. What do you absolutely need? What is like a nice to have? Those are ways that you can think about the homework. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit now about questions. So one thing that has come up in some of the questions is talking about like, what are all the majors that could be offered or the subjects that could be offered at liberal arts? And I think, I think it's more, the question is like, where should people go to find out what majors your institution offers?
Yeah, so on all of our websites, we have lists of like majors or departments, and our websites are really great features to get to know our institutions more, and whatever you want to know, what our students do for fun, what the clubs or activities are, and majors. And so for each of us, we have comprehensive lists on our websites of all of the academic departments. You can then click on those and learn more about what our professors are doing, what their specialties are, what the courses are that are offered, what the student research is, what those students from those majors are doing after they graduate our institutions. So that'll give you a sense of not only what we offer academically, but what the experience would be in those specific majors and what those outcomes could be too.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to highlight, and we talked about this a little bit in this myth busting, right? But if we don't offer a super specific major, but you're excited about a liberal arts education, you can come and shape your experience. You can take courses from different disciplines and potentially create your own major, or see the ways in which you're sort of informing your understanding of a really specific idea. So that business and finance example, I think, is a great one, right? You won't see business or finance as majors on our college pages and on most liberal arts college pages, and yet our alums are leaders in those fields. So if you're excited about interdisciplinary learning, if you're excited to sort of push the bounds and take intellectual risks, and you want to do something that isn't listed, those are possibilities, right? There are pathways for you to be successful. So yes, a major list is something to look at, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get a great education and go on to be super successful in that specific field. What you major in, right, doesn't define your job prospects or your possibilities.
Thank you. Last week we talked actually about STEM as well, and how the world has evolved with what we used to think was a STEM field versus now STEAM fields, and everything is really interrelated. So I think there was a question here about, okay, I'm interested in economics. How should I decide? Do I do a solely economics focused program, or do a liberal arts program with, including economics? We're obviously biased here because we all went to liberal arts institutions and we work at liberal arts institutions. So we would say definitely do the liberal arts. But when you think about kind of the world at large now, I went into a liberal arts college thinking I wanted to do business. But there was not a business major, but I took classes in economics, and I ended up taking classes in psychology. And there's this awesome class called organizational psychology. And you just learn a lot about kind of how that all ties together. And I think that ends up being more valuable than just purely studying one subject. And I think that's necessary. I think even large universities are talking about this. Last week, our STEM schools were talking about this as well. Large institutions talking about the need to kind of consider you're not only taking math classes, you want to take other classes that will enable you to think about the problem solving that might have to come from taking classes in sociology, taking classes in psychology and such. So anyone else have anything to highlight about kind of how do I choose? Do I do a solely focused program on something, or do I pick a liberal arts program?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the sort of decision-making confusion, decision-making paralysis even, right? I would echo everything that Gloria just said and really emphasize it. I would also add that you aren't getting less depth in economics at a liberal arts college by doing more with your economics, right? It's the difference between rigidity and flexibility. And so at bigger schools, right, oftentimes the path towards an economic degree is really narrow. And at our schools, the path towards an economics degree is really deep and wide. And so you can get the same amount of experience with economics at a liberal arts college while also doing all of those things that Gloria just referenced, right? You can't lead a company without understanding how to communicate. You can't lead a company without understanding how to write. You can't lead a company without understanding people and their behavior, right? And so I think all the pieces of how you see the world and what you want to make your impact, where you want to make your impact, come together at a liberal arts college because of the flexibility we have to offer. And you do not sacrifice depth to get that flexibility.
Wonderful. Well, as always, we have some questions about process and how to get in or things that you look at. So before I dive into like actually asking that question, I do encourage, if you have not been watching Tuesday Talks, go back, because there are many where we talk about these. And to be quite frank, many institutions in the US are looking at it similarly. And in terms of holistic review, we talked about a puzzle piece, we talked about connecting the dots, all of those. I don't think we need to repeat all those here. I think the way that I would pose the question to you all is, how does one, because like I think people ask, what are the admissions requirements? But I think we want to kind of think beyond requirements here. How does one go about kind of figuring out whether or not you as a student fit in to the kind of student profile of sorts at your schools? Where on the website would be a good place, or is there a good way to connect to a student or someone to kind of figure out, like, are we tracking similarly? Like, is this like a place that I could probably see myself and thrive and be successful?
Yeah, what a great framing of that question. I think the idea of you seeing yourself thriving on our campuses is what we want, whether that's at one of our 3 wonderful institutions or any other wonderful institution across the globe. right? That's really the idea of the educational experience, is you feeling like you're able to be the best version of yourself. And I think, there are a few ways you can look at a class profile, right? So your high schools often will have these class profiles. Our colleges often have a class profile that gives you a sense of number of people in the class and some bio demo information, but that's just scratching the surface, right? And doesn't really speak to the sort of experiences that our students have and the way they think about their education. So all admission officers across the US, but I'm sure across the globe, are excited to connect you to our best advocates, which are our current students. So I would really, really recommend you reaching out either to one of us or other admission officers. If you can't find student contact information on that admission office website. And one of the ways in which the COVID pandemic has impacted our ability to think about connecting is also, maybe there are recorded classes that you could watch and say, like, what does that class look like? Is that a class that I would be really excited to take? Maybe there are opportunities, even if you're not able to visit campus, to sort of like sit in virtually on a class and have that kind of experience, right? Like our campuses have never been more accessible than they are in this moment. And so take advantage of that, and take advantage of the opportunities to connect with current students who are going to give you a sense of, is this a place I can really see myself thriving?
Thank you. I think too, people are asking some questions about majors and who has the best program in whatever major. And I think what Kat was just talking about, and what we were talking about earlier, is like when you reach out to a school, you can tell people that that's what you're interested in. So for example, the upgraded question, right? Like, I am so-and-so, I see that you have a sociology program, I'm particularly interested, could you connect me with a current student who's majoring in sociology? That would be a great way to kind of upgrade your question and connect with someone who could give you probably even better information, the admissions officer themselves, honestly, because they're in the thick of that class, in the faculty of getting to know them. So I think there's one more question here about, and we're going back to STEM a little bit. If you want to pursue a computer science major, or if you want to consider pre-med, do these colleges have very, I think, Ryan, you already touched on the depth that you are able to get to, but is there some approach that people should be taking if they're like, I've got some science thing that I really want to do, and I want to make sure that I have the resources and the opportunities. What do I need to do to get those?
So for pre-med and computer science, those are both things that Oberlin offers, and I'm sure that Haverford and Bowdoin do as well, and our colleagues. So you can major in those things at our colleges. So you will still have those opportunities. And even if you didn't, even if you, computer science was something that you realized later, or medical school was something you realized later that you're interested in, you're still gonna have such a strong foundation of learning and understanding and ability from our schools that you're gonna be in a really good position to be able to pursue the comp sci field, to pursue the medical field. And that will really carry you into those fields after our institutions. So we certainly see our students pursuing those fields, whether or not that's what they majored in at our schools. But you can absolutely have specific technical training at our schools, and that then leads you into those fields.
I think that's great. I would just add, sorry, Gloria. I would just add two things. One, Am I a delay? Am I good? Okay. So one, all of us, yes, do offer all these different types of STEM fields. If you are interested in medicine and you are an international student, it is really, really hard to say you should come and do that in the United States. And I say that thinking that we prepare people incredibly well for medical school. Medical school is an incredibly popular field. Medicine is an incredibly popular field to go into for all of our graduates. It's not us, it's medical school. Medical school doesn't admit, US medical schools admit, I think, 1% of international students, and you have to put all of the money for medical school into a bank account upfront. So it's incredibly expensive and it's incredibly hard to get into. And so I have a hard time saying, as an international student, come to the US if you are absolutely dedicated to medicine. If you want to do research around medicine, we are great options. If you are a US citizen living overseas, great, come and do medicine in the United States. But as an international student, I think we just want to be really thoughtful about sort of what that path looks like. Not to say that you can't do it, but it's really challenging. And so just be really thoughtful about your research and how you're going about it. And then I forget the second piece of that because I got really focused on the medicine. So we'll just leave it with the medicine.
But thank you for saying that, Ryan, because we really appreciate kind of the frankness of that, because it is true that is the one area that's a little bit trickier. Other fields are not like that, but in medicine that is. But you can get a very well-rounded education at a liberal arts school, and the rate of success in getting to med school just generally is quite high. It's just that the international student piece is a little hard. So if you're not dead set on being a doctor, but you know that health services and medicine and research is something that you want to, then you can freely do that and take those types of classes still. Well, we've gone past the hour, so thank you so much to our guests. Thank you, Ryan, Kat, Sophie, for taking time. Again, do not hesitate to reach out. Please give these three institutions a high five if you want to know more about their institution, because they're going to give you those current student links and those, those virtual webinar links that are going to be really helpful to you. So we're going to take a break from Tuesday Talks for just a couple of months. Enjoy your summer, do something interesting and fun. And we look forward to talking to you again in the fall, whether you're going to be doing that initial view interview for application, or if you're coming back to Tuesday Talks to learn more, depending on what grade you are in. And in the meantime, enjoy